MZTV.
All right. I so appreciate seeing everybody here. It's unreal. I mean, you guys are here you guys just hang on to every word that comes from the mouth of God. You have for a long time. And I'm just passing on to you the words of God. I'm just a messenger, as you know. So we know that God chooses certain people to believe and other people he has not chosen to believe. So in a way you could say he actively makes people unbelievers. Actively makes people unbelievers. And it's like the pirate said, we have been handed a great hand. We have the royal flush. It's unreal how the riches that we have in Christ. And I remember the day I realized that it wasn't my goodness, wasn't my choice, that it was totally a choice of God based on the fact that he simply liked me because of his delight. Ephesians 1, the sake of his delight. That was a shocking day, because on that day I realized there was no difference in my flesh from the flesh of Adolf Hitler or even Mother Teresa. There was no difference. You know. So that left the problem of unbelievers. It was a problem because they were actively not chosen. The Calvinist solution to that problem is God purposely not chose them to burn them in hell for eternity. I can't wrap my head around that sickness. I have to give the Arminian viewpoint, that is the standard Christian viewpoint, credit. At least they don't have the stomach to make God responsible for most of humanity being burned in hell. We say we have to take this responsibility away from God and give it to the human beings. I mean, that has its own problems, obviously. But it avoids the problem of a God who purposely brings people into the world in order to torment them for eternity. That's not our God. So what happens to unbelievers? How unfair is it? Because you always hear it's not fair, and it's not. There's nothing to do with fairness. We won the lottery, other people have not. And other people are going to go through this life, perhaps even being vessels of dishonor. Like Mark was telling us, Judas. People were born to have a bad role. Or was that Scott? I can't remember. Who did that? People are born to have a bad role, and they can't do anything about it. God still judges them. But if they don't end up coming into the life that Christ won for them, then God is truly not fair. Pharaoh will not be able to say at the great white throne, well, it's no fair because I shouldn't be being judged here because you're the one that hardened my heart. God could say, it's not even the issue here. I know I hardened your heart. It's what was in your heart. And Pharaoh is going to be adjusted. And then eventually, whether he probably go to the lake of fire, which is the second death, he will eventually be saved. And he will eventually have to say, I was used by the great God of the universe for a necessary role. Judas had a necessary role. Pharaoh had a necessary role. We're talking about famous people now. Judas, Pharaoh. Let's talk about your kids. I got skin in this game. Just so you know, before I start. I have 2 kids out of 3 who are unbelievers. One is an atheist. One is a leader in the Christian religion. One is a believer. I was telling some people last night, Paul divides humanity into 3 different groups in 1 Corinthians. He says there are Jews and Greeks and those who believe. To the Jews, the cross is a stumbling block because of its completeness. They can't handle the fact that the cross is complete. To the Greeks, it's stupidity. Because as my dad said to me once, why would you follow a man who got himself killed on a cross? That's the worldly man. It's stupidity to the worldly man. To the religious man, it's a stumbling block because, as we said, the Christian religion, they like to be the middlemen between salvation and you. And there's a third category, believers. There's only 3 categories, Jews, Greeks, and believers. The shocking thing to me about that was realizing there are 2 different kinds of unbelievers. In those 3 groups, the Jews, the Greeks, and the believers, the Jews and the Greeks are both unbelievers. These are representative. The Jews represent the religious man. The Greek represents the wise man. The man who's wise in his own estimation. But it was a shock to me to find out that there's two groups of unbelievers. This made me realize years ago that Christianity was the enemy. And I couldn't say, well, they mean well. Christians mean well. I can't be too hard on them. Even people, I shouldn't say this, even people within the Concordant Publishing concern told me back in like 96, 97, you're really speaking too harshly against Christianity. You should use the term Christendom, because that's the false thing. The Christianity is the legitimate, they're trying, they're good people. And I realized that's just, no, that's just, it's the whole religion. And the two kinds of unbelievers are religious unbelievers and worldly unbelievers. They're both unbelievers. That's what they have in common. The Jews would be mortified if you told them that they had something in common with the Greeks. Because those were the dogs. Those were, what do we possibly have in common with the Greeks? This. You're both unbelievers. At least the Greeks have the decency to be in-your-face unbelievers. I told my son, Luke, who's the atheist, I don't have to worry. None of my kids watch my show, not even the believer. None of my kids watch my show. They don't watch it. I told him, my son Luke, who's the atheist, how can anybody be an atheist? My son is intelligent. He has a web company. He teaches English to Chinese people. He's going to be a millionaire someday. And so I looked at it from every angle, Dad. He told me this last week, maybe 2 weeks ago on our trip out west. I looked at it from every angle. I just don't see where there's a God. And I thought to myself, I didn't say this, but I thought to myself, you have every tool to research this except one you need, and that's spirit. And the verse that came to me was, I think 1 Corinthians 2:7. The soulish man is not receiving the things of the Spirit of God, because these things are spiritually discerned. You have to have the Spirit of God to discern them. And my son was using every tool available to him: research, reason, logic, and he couldn't discern God. He groped and groped and couldn't find God because he lacks, and I don't know why, Dale, I don't know why, but he lacks the one tool necessary, Spirit, to find the things of God. You can't find it without the Spirit. You can't. No matter how you grope and how you grasp, God has to give you that Spirit. And then, of course, you know I have a son in the Christian religion. I told my son, the atheist, I said, I have an easier time talking to you. I have less problems with you than I have with my youngest son, who is becoming a chief in the Christian religion, who is now, as I speak, starting his own spin-off church. He was captured. He was captured. I had a dream about it. You may have heard me talk about it. I don't put any trust in my dreams. I'm not one of these people who have meaningful dreams. All my dreams are ridiculous, and I forget them before I wake up usually. But this one was terrifying. I maybe have 2 terrifying dreams every year where you wake up in a sweat and you sit up and your heart's beating and it takes you 5 minutes to realize you're in the real world, you know. But I dreamed without going on. Okay. I dreamed that we were at a hotel room, and my youngest son, and there were these gelatinous creatures. They were like really, and they were insectish. And I remember them, they were coming out of the bathroom, and they were just covering him. And they started small, and they became big, and they had these tentacles, and they were ugly. Like John sees evil spirits in the unveiling as frogs, you know, as these reptilian creatures. And these were the kind of creatures that were coming after my son, and they were like covering him, and they were encasing him, and they were taking him away from sanity, from a sound realization of God. And it's just exactly what happened, to the point that this son of mine that I love, and the remarkable thing is I taught all my kids the same. God gave me one in every category: Jew, Greek, a believer. My oldest son believes. For some reason, God saw fit. I'm going to give Martin Zender one son in each category that Paul mentions in 1 Corinthians 15. But he's going to raise them the exact same way. I raised them the same way, equally. And there you go. There you go. The reason I'm at peace, and my son Luke, the atheist, doesn't like this. I'll get back to the dream. my son Luke doesn't like this. He goes, why are you at peace about this? Mom is terrified about this. She cries and cries that I'm an atheist, and you seem to you look out the window at the view, and hey, do you have any snacks up there? You know, what's going on? Why are you so at ease with this? And he hated my answer. My answer was, because I know that Christ died for you too, and you're in the end. And he didn't like that, because he didn't like that this was going to happen outside his will. You see, right? He didn't like to hear that this thing was going to happen. And that the God that he now didn't even doubt existed had actually sent his son to die for him. Sorry about your luck, kid, but you're saved. He hated. He was like, I don't really like why you're so at peace. I said, hey, look at the Grand Canyon. But in my dream, my youngest son was coated with this evil, and they took him away, and that's exactly what happened. And my youngest son, listen to this, I always was proud of him and everything, no matter what my kids did. Played sports, they were in the plays at school. I was always said, my buttons are popping, son, because I'm so proud of you. And I was a present dad, blah, blah. But when my son joined, he said, Dad, I gotta tell you something, and I don't think you're probably going to like it. I took a job at the church, and they're grooming me to be a pastor. I said to him, this is the worst decision you have ever made. This is disastrous. And I said, please, I'm telling you now, before it's too late, quit, get out of it, don't do it. You have so many other talents. He quit a job where he was making mucho money because he's such a smart kid, and he was doing this in this marketing firm where they were helping start up businesses, and he has such talent. But he has this calling of God, and the calling of God has him being kidnapped into the Christian religion. And I had a heart-to-heart with him in the town where he's living, which was Delaware, Ohio. We were sitting at a park bench, and that's where he told me, I said, son, if what you're telling me is true, that you believe in eternal torment, and my parents, your grandparents, are now being burned in hell. Do you know what he said? With no emotion, not even blink, he said, yes, that's what I believe. These were the people who doted on him, who loved him. My dad's nickname for him was Sparky because he was so energetic. He put it on his knee and with no emotion and a dead eye, yes, I know that your mom and dad, my grandparents, are now burning in hell. I almost wanted to put my hand in front of him and say, Paul, I know you're in there. I know you're in there. And he is. The Paul I raised is in there. He's in there. But for now, he's been kidnapped, hijacked. He got hijacked by a spiritual force that was stronger than he was. You know, the weird thing is, I'm at complete peace. Because after he said that to me, you would think that would have made me go ballistic. He's talking about my parents and his grandparents. You know what the odd thing was? At that moment was when I got peace. You understand what I'm talking about? Because at that moment I realized he was gone. And I did everything I could. Took him to conferences. I didn't go to conferences like this without my family. I took my family everywhere. And I talked to them personally, and I read them the scriptures in the womb. So there you have it. And look what happened. But I'm at total peace because I know God has the situation. And I know what happens to unbelievers. They're eventually saved, but they have to go their course. The eon's not over yet. Do I have hope that my son will see the truth? My youngest son will see the truth before the snatching away? Not really. But I know God can do it, but I don't expect him to do it. Because he's God and I'm not. God is God. I'm at such peace, it's unbelievable. I'm not worried about it. I guess that final straw was him saying that, and I realized he's gone, But I relate to him on every other level. It's not like I pushed him out of my life and don't talk to him. It's not that at all. I'm interested in it. He has 2 kids, and his wife is nice, and I wonder if she still talks to me, honestly. My daughter-in-law, I don't know how she still talks to me. But she does, so I appreciate every little gracious thing I received. All my books are sitting on his shelf. The books his dad wrote with the truth. But he's not allowed to read them because his leaders told him that I'm a sinner. I'm a dark person, you know, lives a sketchy life, and don't listen to him. He's on the wrong path. We're on the right path. So there those books sit. There those books sit. I haven't talked much about my older son, but yeah, he's the believer for some reason. If I can't explain what I just told you, can't explain it. So neither can I explain how my older son is a believer. Why can't I explain any of these three cases? Because it's entirely up to the choosing of God. That's why. And I told you the day I realized God chose me to do this and to believe, it was the most amazing day when I realized it wasn't anything that I did or any favor that I had garnered of God because of being a good person. Nothing that at all. It was a liberating day because now I can talk like I do. People hear me talk like I do. I'm the world's most outspoken Bible scholar. That makes sense for a living. And people say, this guy's so bombastic, he's so proud, he's so arrogant. The only reason I talk like this is because I know that it's not of me. It's all a joke to me. And you know that. But other people who hear it and they go, well, this guy really is arrogant. It's farthest thing from the truth. It's a joke to even think that I had any contributing factor. So now I can play with it. I'm so done and I'm so dead and the old humanity was so crucified that now I play with that. And I sometimes do it just to piss people off. I do. It works. It works. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend. So, I put a map of the Aeonian times here this afternoon. But now I'm going to put a completely different chart of the eons that maybe you've never seen. Now, to remind you, to review, this is what I wrote earlier. This is what I did. I said, this is Eon 1, this is Eon 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I put this line in between. And we're looking forward to luxuriating in Eons 4 and 5. We're going to be alive among the celestials. We're going to be above every name that is named, both in heaven and on earth. So we're going to be administrators of heavens and earth while being in the heavens. And then Eon 5, forget about it. We're really kicking there. So we want to pause here, and we want to luxuriate in our future. We don't want these eons to go by quickly because we want to luxuriate in all this labor that it took God and Christ to get to this beautiful point where now we're entering into the weekend. But when it comes to unbelievers, when it comes to your friends and family, your children, your parents, this is how I want you to look at the eons. I'm going to disappear for a moment. You may talk quietly among yourselves. Do you see this? No. These are the 5 eons. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I wrote the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is, if you want to call it, before the eons. And this is after the eons. And this is the consummation right here. And this is what, if you want to call it, eternity. This is if you want to call it eternity. And these are the Aeonian times. Allow me to compare the Aeonian times to a light bulb. The Aeonian times are the little filament on the light bulb where the current resists and the light shows up. You have all this electricity coming from God knows where, enters the light bulb, and this little tiny filament glows. And then where does it go then? There's another wire that comes out this way into that eternity. So the Aeonian times are like this little filament within the span of eternity. I'm speaking in human terms. That's all I got, folks. Sorry. Where this little light shows. So the Aeonian times compared to the vastness of timelessness is relatively nothing. So, these poor people who are going to miss out on the eons. God doesn't give them faith. They're unbelievers. And so they're going to die and they're going to miss the kingdom eon. They're going to be dead. Then they're going to rise at the great white throne. And if their name's written in the book of life, they'll go to the new earth. That's another thing. But let's say their names are not written in the book of life. Let's look at a case like our friend Adolf Hitler. All right, he's in the lake of fire after he's judged. And No, I'm done with Adolf Hitler. I want to talk about your mom. I want to talk about your son. I want to talk about your daughter. That's who I want to talk about. That's the people I want to talk about. I'm done talking about the celebrities. I'm talking about my kid, your kids. Potentially, 2 of my kids are going to be dead for 1,000 years. They're going to miss Eon 4. Then they're going to rise at the great white throne, and their works are going to be judged. They're going to be judged according to their works, not according to their faith. Why would they be judged according to their faith if they didn't have any? Judged according to their works. Then what happens? Well, their names are written in the book of life. I believe both of my unbelieving children, names are written in the book of life. Why? Because they're good people. They're responsible people. My son Luke, that I went out west with, he's married to a beautiful Chinese girl, and he's very responsible, and he loves her. And they're good people. My son Paul, in the Christian religion, married to a beautiful woman named Maddie. He's got 2 kids, loves his children, loves his wife. Good people. So I believe they're going to be on the new earth because their names are written in the book of life. But let's say somebody doesn't have aeonian life at all. Oh, the poor people. These are 5 eons, but there's only 2 eons we're concerned about, and that's the last 2 eons. Here's the last 2 eons. Here. Right there. This is Eon 4 and Eon 5 right there. The tiny... So I want you to look at your unbelieving friends and unbelieving family members with this perspective, that they're only missing out on the last 2 eons, worst case scenario. Because as I made many messages, there's some things that happen for a person whether they believe or not, and one of them is live with eternity for God on the basis of you were born into the Adamic race. Being born into the Adamic race is guaranteed that you will live with Christ forever because Christ cancels out the work of Adam. As in Adam all are dying, 1 Corinthians 15:23, thus also in Christ shall all be vivified. So we know that this. So my son Luke, my son Paul, they're going to live with God for eternity. This is what I'm looking forward to right here. Worst case scenario is they live the worst case scenario is that they live for this here with God. But aren't you going to be, the question is, well, you're going to be alive way before that, Martin. Yes, that's true. Aren't you going to miss your kids? Well, I think time passes differently when we're going to have the mind of Christ. Do you know that Jesus Christ has been 2,000 years without his dear friends, Peter, James, John? He's been 2,000 years without those people. Before he left, he told them that I won't drink wine. I promise you guys. I'm not going to drink wine until I drink it with you in the kingdom. He's going to keep that promise. But in the meantime, 2,000 years has gone by. But my question to you is 2,000 years to Christ the same as 2,000 years to us? Or 2 days to us? Well, 1,000 years is as a day, isn't it? I think Jesus Christ has such anticipation to see his friends that every day that passes is a joy in a way of anticipation. It's just like in school. I couldn't wait. I hated school. I couldn't wait for Friday. Friday night, Brady Bunch Partridge Family. And it's the anticipation of that day. Maybe you started anticipating. I started anticipating on a Monday. But the anticipation was beautiful, wasn't it? There's some sweetness to the anticipation. Same with Christmas Day. The most depressing day of the year for me as a kid was December 26th. The best day was, did you used to in school make those little cardboard chains where you cut the cardboard off to the days until Christmas? Wasn't that the most exciting thing ever? So Jesus Christ is doing that. Even though he's not with us yet, the body, he wants to be and he will be, even though his friends, Peter, James, John, and the rest, they're not with him, that's okay. With endurance and with great patience, because who could have more endurance or patience than Christ? He's waiting for it. So when we're snatched away, it's going to be a pure pleasure to wait to see our loved ones. My mom and dad, I'm not sure about my dad, but my mom, I'm not going to see her for 1,000 years. What kind of happiness am I going to have at the snatching away, there's Paul, there's Trifina, there's Tryphosa, but my kids and my mom, maybe my dad, I'm not sure, I'm not going to see them for 1,000 years. You know what's going to be? It's going to be pure freaking bliss in the knowledge, the anticipation that that day will come when they will rise from the dead. And as they come up from the dead, they will see their son and their father. That's a nice anticipation. And I'll tell you, I'm even anticipating it now. And I haven't even been snatched away yet. I have no worries. It's weird. I don't quite understand it, but I'm thankful for it. And I said something at the Missouri conference, and you've probably heard it if you watch the tapes from the Missouri conference. But I have to say it again, because this has changed my life, what I'm about to tell you. And it'll change your life too. It's not a cliche. It actually will change your life. My problem in life has always been, well, the main pain in my life has to do with relationships. And so I tend to, with anguish, look back on relationships and things that could have been and the brokenness, and I just pine. I'm alone and it hurts, and I just always think about it. I did. But I actually believe the things that I teach. I actually believe this stuff. I actually believe that the coming of Christ is soon. And the analogy I gave in Missouri, I'm going to give to you now, and if you've heard it before, it doesn't hurt to hear it again, is my analogy is the Apollo astronauts being locked into that capsule on their backs, looking up towards, and just everything disappears. It doesn't matter if they had a fight with their wife that morning, or their kids said a bad word to them, or they said a bad word to their kids. Everything disappears. All things of earth disappear because of the tenseness and the momentousness of that moment where you're strapped in and people get 3 miles away. Everybody has to be 3 miles away because this is a bomb, and you're sitting on top of it. That's how I feel. That's how I feel the imminence of Christ's return. Is that real to me? I feel like I'm strapped in that Saturn V and I'm looking up into space. What difference does it make of the pains of the past? I'm going to be completed in Christ. And when I'm completed, I then have the compassion, the love, everything I need to then minister to these other people that don't understand me, that dismiss me, that kick me out of their lives. I can't deal with it now. But when I'm changed and taken on the mind of Christ and have an immortal body and have all love, all understanding, all peace, I will be able to do more for them than I ever could here on earth. So it's time to leave you. I'm sorry, I have to leave you. Pain, sorrow. I have to leave you angst, disappointment. Because you've done nothing but hurt me. But I have a Savior who does nothing but promise to bless me. And He has now declared through His Word that I am now strapped into a rocket. And everybody else thinks I'm crazy. And you too. You're strapped in. They think you're nuts. It's over. The door's locked. You're not getting out now. The door's locked. Can you imagine the feeling of those astronauts when that door latch locks and everybody runs the hell away? The technicians who put you in that capsule run the hell away after they lock the door. You're in. 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 There's nothing you can do to get out. And this thing is launching. And there's no turning back now. And we're going. We're going. It's going to be the most spectacular ride you can ever imagine. And because of our completion, we're going to be able, from that celestial vantage point, to revisit. This is why I keep talking about how thrilling it's going to be, to revisit those that we can't help now because of our weakness. Stop worrying about it. Stop crying over it. You're in the rocket. It's going to happen. And from that vantage point, you're going to be able to help them in a way you've never been able to help them before. It's the how do you like me now syndrome. How do you like me now? That's my peace, and it's real to me, man. I believe this stuff more than ever. I just don't teach it. I actually believe it. There's a big difference between those two things. And actually believing it is there's nothing else. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. It's too late. We're locked in and we're going. Thank you.